and welcome to the Weaverville Candidate Forum meeting. Let me describe to you the process we're going to use tonight. I'm going to introduce the candidates to you in just a moment, and then Al and I will, my co-moderator is Al Root, former mayor, and myself, Patrick Fitzsimmons, outgoing mayor, lame duck as I'm commonly called. We'll be moderating tonight's conversation, and we have some prepared questions that we'll be asking the candidates in the first half of the session, and then we're going to ask questions from you all in the second half. So if you have questions you'd like to ask the candidates, if you would give those, if you would find this guy, Jeff McKenna, former council member, he's got 3x5 cards and pins. You can write your questions onto the cards, give them back to him. He will then be sorting them and giving them to me and Al to ask the candidates later on in the session. If you want your question read, be sure to write legibly. And make sure to get it back to Jeff. He's the card keeper. So thanks for being here again. We have a lucky come up, as you know. Early voting downtown Asheville has already started. Early voting in Weaverville is Saturday, November the 1st at the community center. And election day is Tuesday, November 4th at the regular polling sites. Did I get that right? All right, good job. So let me introduce our candidates. We have 6 people running for 3 open council seats, and we have 2 people running for 1 mayor's seat. On this end, we've got Andrew Nagel, running for mayor, David Keene, running for council, Eleanor Morasikowski, running for council, Steve Lawrence, running for mayor, Mark Andrews, running for council, Jennifer Young, running for council, Fred Moore, running for council, and Phil Barnett, running for council as well. Please give him a hand of welcome. So we'll start by asking the candidates questions. They have a 2-minute response time, and then at the end, I'll have a couple minutes to give a pitch to you as well at the end of the session. So we'll start with Al. You got the first question, I believe.
Okay, and I believe it's probably worth mentioning that we're not answering one question for everybody.
That's a good point. We decided we're not going to ask the same question of all 8 candidates, because what happens is, after answer number 3, it's boring, and the guy at the end has a disadvantage because everyone will already answer it like this end. So what we're doing is we're dividing up, we have several questions, and we're asking 2 candidates each to answer each question. So there'll be a variety of questions.
And time?
And time, this is our timekeeper, Louise. And you'll see Louise has a yellow card, and when candidates, when you see the yellow card goes up, that means you got 20 seconds left. And when you see the red card goes up, that means shut up. And she's tough.
Can you by chance have people stand up when they respond so we can hear them back here too?
That would be great. There is a mic. You'll have to, if you stand up to answer your questions, you'll need to probably hold the mic. Although the sound guy Dave says that will probably work. Let's give it a try. Stand up, Dave. Well, no, we're just going to see if they can hear.
Okay, can you hear through the mic?
Okay, good. We got a new sound guy. You got this stuff figured out.
Don, you want to mention the audience questions?
Oh, and so Jeff is reminded when you write that question on the cards, rather try and concentrate on community-wide questions, not, darn, I want to complain about the pothole in front of my house, or I have a barking dog on Brown Street. Okay? So Jeff right here will have the cards. He'll make it rounds, I guess, just grabbing. He's got 10 cards. Anything else on this, guys? Okay, let's get started. Al?
To me. First off, an apology. There's really nothing about your name, so I should screw it up. Nevertheless, I have a long history of doing that, so I apologize if I mess up anybody's name. So we're going to start with a question to the 2 mayoral candidates, and we will ask Andrew to answer first and Dee to answer second. So first to Andrew Nagel and then Dee Lawrence. Andrew Nagel.
The sound system isn't good enough.
That's probably me. Andrew. First, what role should the mayor play in guiding and mentoring a largely new town council?
So can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. I think it's vastly important to set the tone and the agenda. So we know the mayor sets the agenda, but it's the tone. and it's leading by example. What do we want to do? Help walking through, what I like to say, doing our homework. So when we're getting ready to vote on something, has everybody done their homework? Is everybody informed? I think it's really important for the mayor to make sure that everybody's informed on council, so we make a positive decision. And getting some impact from the community in between presentations. So we've talked about that in the past. But mentoring and guiding, having one-on-one time with each council member. We've got some good experience on council, maybe not on council, but there's people at this table who have given their time to the town already and fundamentally can understand how it works. So that's my answer on that.
Dee?
I think that the thing that I would like to see with council is to make sure that each council member has some form of specialty to work with a particular department head, through the town manager, of course, to learn what's going on with those, and then the outside committees that we belong to, like MBO, MSD, those things. We should have air candidates for council, be able to sit in on those meetings, we start learning about how the outside suppliers provide their services to the town.
So the next question is for Chris Borth and then Phil Barnett.
Can you have them repeat their names when they get up?
Would you all say your name when you stand up? Weaverville is getting ready to complete their new strategic plan. In fact, it's on the agenda for Monday night's meeting to be approved. As well as we're working on a revision of the comprehensive land use plan and the county's new strategic plan, which includes a Weaverville chapter, will also be done by the end of the year. Are you somewhat familiar with these plans, and would you be committed to carrying out the strategies that are in those plans?
My name is Fred Borth. Thank you all for being here. I would support the strategic plan and the plans that the council has worked on so diligently and done such a wonderful job. I'm not familiar with every aspect of the plans. I've read through them and I agree with what they're bringing to this wonderful community that we live in.
Phil?
Yes, I'm Phil Barnett. To Patrick's point, yes, I'm very supportive and looking forward to seeing those plans. Our Economic Development Committee here in your town actually has identified a number of projects that we are looking for in terms of their overlap with those plans. So what we've discovered is we've got a lot of projects that are very interesting to a number of you. And what we're doing now is organizing a new subcommittee to focus on grants and bring in money to Weaverville to help pay for those so that we don't have to rely upon tax dollars to do that. Anyway, the corridor that we're talking about around our new hospital is going to be especially interesting in terms of how these plans overlap with that new development. And there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential, and a lot of diversification that's on the way. Thank you.
My next question will be for council candidates, Mark Andrews and Eleanor Rizkowski. You're the tough name here. How can the town work with NCDOT and Buncombe County to improve safety on state-maintained roads within our town limits? Mark?
Hello, I'm Mark Andrews. I'm a council candidate. So most of the busy roads in town, the main travel corridors, are state-maintained roads. And so to see improvements on state-maintained roads, One needs to get onto the state transportation improvement plan. And the way that happens is through a regional group called the French Broad Metropolitan Planning Organization. And so that's the regional group that assesses the roads and promotes roads for improvements, and then that goes to the state transportation improvement plan, and then that gets sorted. So what needs to happen for the town of Weaverville to ensure that its roads are well-maintained and constructed such that can handle the volume and variety of transportation types that people want to see is to be active through the Metropolitan, French Broad Metropolitan Planning Organization. If I make it onto town council, I'll lobby to be the representative on council for that organization. My day job, I work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as a transportation liaison, so I work with the Department of Transportation daily, more from an environmental side than the planning side, but I do understand the agency and understand how this whole process goes. And so that would be my strategy if I make it on the town council. Thank you.
Howard?
I think rather than Laskowski, as Mark said, most of the roads that are of high traffic are state maintained roads. And so the responsibility of the council is to work very closely with the state to make sure that they understand our needs. And the traffic situation here is very dire. So I think it's very important for the next council to work very closely with them to make sure that all our needs are met. Thank you.
My next question is for council candidates David King and Jennifer Young. Jennifer, Weaverville is a mainly residential town these days. Many people want to live here and in the heart of town, yet current geography and zoning favor low-density housing. Eliminating single-family zoning is a growing trend across the country. Even Buncombe County did the same just recently. Do you support zoning that allows greater density in housing?
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Young. You know, I think it's important for the downtown region to maintain their look and their heritage, and the fabric that made all of us come to this town and love this town as we see it today. As we build and grow, I do think that higher density is going to be important. Weaverville is an expensive place to live because all of us want to be here. I grew up here, and those of you who didn't grow up here moved to this town because you love it. And we want to keep the heritage of our town like it is, but we also need to make room for our young families. My son lives here, and it's so expensive to live here that it's difficult for him to find a piece of property to build a house on. So if there's room and it meets the fabric of the town, yes, I think it's okay to build additional homes in the town limits that is congruent with the other neighborhoods that are around. But I think the high-density areas need to stay on the outskirts of town as these new developments are built so that we maintain the heritage of our town.
Thank you, David.
David King, I agree with Jennifer. The downtown of Weaverville is the core of the community. And it's the historical appeal and everything we have that makes this a unique community. I came here from Canberra. It has nothing that looks like Weaverville. So we want to maintain that. And any sharp deviation from what's in place now, I think should be done with a great deal of input from the people who actually live in town before any change would be made. And as Jennifer also said, I think most of the higher density is going to come through the newer developments. Like I live in a newer development up Rain Springs. Those could easily be more condensed. I live in a fairly condensed neighborhood. So I'm open to what keeps Weaverville, but also what we have to do to adjust. And I think that is a decision that very much needs input from the community, as well as council taking a deep dive into this. Thank you.
Okay, we tried for randomness here, but sometimes in doing that, you hit upon the same people again. Therefore, we in fact are gonna ask, y'all, David and Jennifer again, but we're gonna go back this time, Dave, I'll ask you first. What kind of ancillary or support services do you expect the hospital will generate, like businesses, for example? And how should the town plan for them so we benefit the most from these new opportunities?
Once again, David King, he is correct. There's going to be a lot of ancillary development that comes around the hospital. It's going to come in the form of doctor's offices. It's going to come in the form of pharmacies and other types of business, possibly small labs. So that will be a good tax base for the county. I'm from the county. And for the town to help finance the needs that we will have to put in place for the hospital. So right now, the current council has done a good job of putting in place zoning that will protect downtown from fast food establishments and I would say another type of dollar type store. But out there, it's a little different. So I think one of the biggest things, that's going to happen. And we can plan and try to control it as much as we can. And going back to the question about traffic and roads, I think it's going to be important the council be very much involved and engaged in how the intersections and sidewalks and the ability to move around out there without a car. So, thank you.
My name's Jennifer Young, and I got lucky with this question because I'm a nurse. I know the needs of healthcare, and I understand what it's going to take to make this hospital system be best suited for this community and how we can all work together to make this a very successful venture for us. Having Advent Health move into our community is the biggest thing that's happened to Weaverville in its 150-year history. We are very fortunate that we got the certificate of need for this hospital to come out here. What goes along with the hospital, of course, is doctor's offices, physical therapists, occupational therapists, all of those types of things are going to be built right there on the hospital campus. But when you get off of the campus, you have to think who's going to be at the hospital. You're going to have hospital workers. You're going to have visitors. You're going to have patients. Some of the visitors may come from as far as Unicoi County. They lost their hospital when Helene came and took it out. So it's not unreasonable to think that some of these people may cross state lines to come over here to get some good health care. We may have people from Burnsville or Spruce Pine. And when we have patients that come from that distance to get care, their families are going to want to be close to them. So I anticipate things such as a hotel may be built near the hospital site. We may need another gas station out that way. The hospital workers have to eat, so I would anticipate additional restaurants. I know all of us have said, oh, we don't want another fast food restaurant, but I would love to see some good quality family-owned restaurants, not always a chain restaurant, but some family-owned restaurants that can come and offer those types of services. But it is going to change that whole corridor and the look of what we currently know as anything west of 2570.
Thank you. The next question I have is for Eleanor Moroskowski and Mark Andrews, and it's actually quite similar to the question that Al just answered. We wrote separate questions, but we didn't think to actually read each other's questions, so it's not the similar thing. But it gives you guys a chance to answer a similar question. The new hospital and other developments on the west side of town will create an economic development zone there. What actions would you take to ensure that we attract the types of businesses and growth that we want and discourage the types of those things that we don't want? Hello?
So I agree with what a lot of the other candidates have said. We've done a really good job of preventing the wrong types of businesses in our downtown. And I think we need to take a lot of those same steps in building out this new corridor. I agree with Jennifer that there's likely going to be a need for another hotel.
Mark Andrews. So I would advocate for development that helps to support the needs of the hospital. So, and that's really a big variety of things, from restaurants for workers when they need to go get a bite to eat, or for patients or patients' families that are visiting, potentially lodging, like was mentioned already, for certain medical services that would support the hospital and help bolster it up. I've been on the Weaverville Planning Board for the last 5 years, and so from that I've gained an excellent understanding of zoning and land use, and I would advocate for utilizing our zoning to help drive what types of development are come in. And so like we've done that with downtown by limiting the types of commercial businesses that are possible. And so potentially with this new economic zone, potentially we could develop a new zoning class specific for this area that would target the types of services and businesses and things that we want to see in and around the hospital area. So I guess in short, I would strive to utilize our zoning to drive and target the types of development that we would like to see come to that area. Thank you.
Next question will be for Phil Barnett, Fred Boyd. How would you measure whether the council and manager are functioning effectively together on behalf of the residents? Bill, you're first.
Oh, okay. Well, similar to some of our other candidates, I have grown up with a lot of really tough bosses. And I've had to go through a number of performance reviews, and a lot of that has to do with what was called 360 feedback. In other words, not only is the boss basically giving you feedback, but also the folks that you work around. So I think it would be really good for us, and this has been mentioned before, but really to upgrade our citizen engagement with each of you and really open the door to your feedback and your questioning of some of the decisions that we're not only faced with, but we have to render a decision for very quickly. But I think there's also statutory frameworks for evaluation, which I'm sure we'll learn about. But I think performance reviews and feedback are helpful, not only in terms of developing our skill to serve you, but also to serve the town. Thank you.
Fred Lord, and if you don't mind, could you repeat the question again? Part of it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
How would you measure whether the council and manager are functioning effectively together on behalf of the residents?
The people measure, in my opinion, and will either complain mostly as to whether we're doing the job that's supposed to be done. Scotty just on Tuesday had a meeting here in this room to get feedback from the community. I was surprised that beyond those of us that are council, there were only 7 people there at the meeting, which tells me Scotty's doing a pretty good job. And I believe he is, and he is open. We sent him an email when I got home. He replied immediately. And those are the measures and those are the opportunities that the community has. He's available by email, and so are the people on the council to answer questions and to know what our job is to represent you. So if you don't tell us what you want or what your concerns are, we can't really address them, and more than eager to address them. Thank you.
The next question is for our mayoral candidates, Dee Lawrence and Andrew Nagel. Dee, Hurricane Helene exposed weaknesses in many of our systems. We had no reliable communications of any kind for several days. Our roads were all blocked in all directions. We did have the saving grace that we had built a water line to Mars Hill that allowed us to access some water, and since then we began to interconnect with Woodfin, and we're building a line to Marshall as well, because the current council and mayor were so smart to protect all of it. What our strategy you would advocate for to improve our resiliency and our interconnectedness to neighboring towns?
I think you hit the real sweet spot there with that solution, because that's one of the ones that I've endorsed. And I've been talking to the constituents about that exact same thing. I will say that Helene was a stress test of our community like no other. If something was going to break, Helene broke it. So you have to be prepared to be able to repair and bring things back online as quickly as possible. And the water is certainly the first thing that we need to work with. Communications was another problem that we ran into. And Scotty and I had that the very first day after the storm where Scotty couldn't get Public Works on the phone. So cell phones weren't working. So we had to come up with alternative means of communicating, like the single sheets of paper that got sent around town to keep the populace informed. But all of those things have to work, and anything we can do to upgrade the communication systems that would harden them and make them more impervious to being impacted by a storm or other type of disaster would be a positive thing in my view.
Andrew Nagel. So I think it did demonstrate that we had really good things in place and we had some proper planning already there. Maybe a little bad luck, the generators weren't online for the water treatment facility, but as Mayor Fitzsimmons said, we had approved big generators to back up what they needed to deliver water. I think we did learn some lessons. As Scotty has come from the fire department background and emergency management background, the communication with the other towns and the managers and what our emergency plans are in effect and what is that backup, as he said. Are we using radios? Are we using pieces of paper? Do we have the right type of vehicles? We need to rethink our electric police vehicles. So, how do you charge an electric vehicle when you have no power? How do we engage utility companies? So, Duke Power, can they get back online quick enough? Are we engaged with ERC broadband, with Frontier, so people can have the internet? That was a really big thing. I think Publix was the only place in town that had Wi-Fi for people so they could communicate with their families. So I think as a community, we all learn things from our personal lives. We sure did. Up at Conrad Industries, ABM, where I work, we put in more generators. We put in backup plans with Starlink. We have redundancy plans now, and I believe the town has done a good job of that. Hopefully this never happens again, but we saw neighbors, right? So neighbors helping neighbors, and that's what needs to happen.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question, I'll move that to Dave King, and then Phil Barnett. And the question is, given that we lack involuntary annexation powers, what tools do you favor the town using to influence land use and protect our community character? Dave?
Okay, once again, David King. That's a very good question. This is something that's on most people's mind, that is about the growth and the annexation. And it's in the town's best interest that we annex, because the growth will come whether we annex or not. We can't stop it. So that's part of the management of this. They will use our services, whether they are in the town or not. So it's best to bring them into the town and have them help pay for the services that you and your neighbors are paying for. Tools, one of the things is we're limited to 10% right now of non-contiguous annexation. This is a state legislative law. We are rapidly approaching that. So what I would do if elected, this was put in by a local bill, this 10% cap. I would approach our state legislators, is on both sides of the aisle, and I know both sides of the aisle, and asked for a local bill to raise that cap so that we are able to make these additional annexations. For example, there's a request right now out Black Creek of 107 acres. If we don't bring that in, and the problem is, we're gonna grow out there eventually. And if you don't get this annexation up front, it's very difficult to get it later. And so you have people in your town essentially not supporting with their tax dollars. Thank you.
Bill,
The next question is, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
no, I agree with David on
Give
a
me 10
number,
more seconds, here, Louise.
on a number of points with respect to annexation. I think, going through the Maple Trace, admission to the town, I think also taught us a lot about awareness, communication, and really upfront definition about what annexation involves. Our lever with developers is water. And as David said, if we can get an upfront agreement to incorporate, that's going to save a whole bunch of blood pressure. But I think another thing that we can develop is an annexation handbook or recipe or something that's really clear with both developers and citizens that if you want to be part of our town in Weaverville, here's what our public works and our town is going to expect in terms of road quality, drainage, maintenance, those kind of things, so that there are no surprises, or at least the surprises are minimal.
Sorry about that, Bill. The next question is for Eleanor Murkowski and Fred Worth. Tell us what you have done to learn more about how Weaverville works and what your interests are in working in town government and what kind of qualifications or experience you have that would make you good as a leader in town government. Eleanor?
Hi, so I graduated from the Citizens Academy, and that taught me a lot about every different area of our local government and how they work. I also studied Western North Carolina tourism history at UNCA, and that gave me a sort of broader sense of how different communities in our region have grown and thrived over time. And I want to apply a lot of those insights to help grow our town and make it even better.
Fred Board. I'm a builder in town. I think that's the one of the things that I can bring to town council in some of the questions and the opportunities that are brought to council. Soil, water runoff, foundations, height, setbacks, all these things I deal with on an every daily basis. Budgeting is key in my business, and to stay in the budget that the town has on certain projects. We're collectively a great group of individuals running for town council. I've gotten to know them really well, and I really have enjoyed it, but we collectively have things that we're good at individually, and together it's a good group. But those are my. Thank you.
Okay, next, and this is going to be to Jennifer Young and then Mark Andrews. 10 years from now, what do you expect to be the major differences in the town of Weaverville? What do you expect to be the things that will most stay the same?
Well, I'm Jennifer Young. What I hope stays the same is our downtown corridor. I think all of us love our little small business shops that are there, our small business restaurants that are there, that create the charm of this town that we all love. I do believe that we're going to see a lot of growth up the Reeves Creek corridor, out 2570 and then out further in 926. I think that it's like a freight train coming is the way I like to describe it. And we've got to lay the right tracks to steer this train in the right direction. There is tremendous growth coming. We have a lot of households coming in. Those households are going to bring a lot of children that have not previously been very apparent in our neighborhoods, but I think we're going to see more of that. I think our schools are going to need some growth, although the town doesn't have say-so with the schools. I think we need to partner with them to see how we can support them as a town. But I think it's very critical that we work on making sure that we can maintain the services that we are all used to. So we have to have a 5 and 10-year vision. How are we going to get to that vision? So we have to think ahead with budgeting and planning. I know I talked with Scotty about it takes 4 years to build a fire truck. So if we're going to need a fire truck, we can't just go on the lot and buy a fire truck. We've got to put it in the budget and plan and order it to our specifications for our terrain and things that we need to get that fire truck here in the next 4 years. So a lot of things are going to change, but I hope that our downtown corridor and the heritage of this town maintains the same.
Mark Andrews. Yeah, I agree a lot with what Jennifer had to say. I think what will stay the same will be our downtown corridor and our downtown neighborhoods. I really don't see much of a drastic change there. Downtown corridor, I could see some of the see some of that built up with maybe some mixed-use development that would preserve the character of downtown, but provide maybe a little bit more in the way of residential and/or shopping. What's going to change? I think over the next 10 years, we're going to see tremendous growth. The hospital corridor of 25. We're seeing growth out Reeves Creek Valley. We're seeing growth north of I-26, Flat Creek exit, things of that nature. I don't think that's gonna change anytime soon. And as your mayor in 2035, I will work very hard. Yeah, I think in 10 years, Weaverville is still going to be a very, very desirable place that people are going to want to live and going to want to come visit, and for a lot of good reasons. And I think we'll work very hard to maintain that.
The next question is also for our mayoral candidates, Andrew Nagel and then Dee Lawrence. Andrew, due to increased traffic on Main Street in the last several months particularly, we're experiencing an increase in response time for our fire department, which is mostly responding to medical emergencies, and most of the responses have to come straight down Main Street. What can be done to reduce that response time and keep Weaverville safe?
Andrew Nagel. So we partner with the county on the fire, and we get about half of our funding from Montgomery County because half the calls are from outside of the town limits. And as we grow the Reeves Creek corridor, I think we have to look hard at that fire station and whether we partner with them and the county to actually take that fire station over versus building another one. So, next door was the fire station, so Lou Acanero did a great job of turning it into what it is today, but our fire station used to be downtown. It was right here. So having probably down, as we said, a 4-lane out to Marshall at some point, especially with the hospital, we're gonna need something out that way, and we're gonna need something off of Reeves Creek. I was sitting out having lunch and fire trucks are coming down Main Street, and it is not enjoyable. I don't believe it's safe. And, our town manager, as we said before, comes from that background, and making sure we get input from him, and so we make informed decisions. But we're gonna have to expand it, especially with the growth and being stuck at the 5 points down by Tractor Supply, and that being our only place to start, saving people just isn't gonna work out with this type of growth.
Excuse me, I agree with Dee Lawrence. I agree with a lot of what Andrew said.
It does make sense for us to grow the fire response out further out so that it can reach the places that are being developed now, because they are going to suffer the same sort of lag time and delay in response. We had a fire in our community not too long ago, and the response time for that was 1 minute because the guy happened to be in the neighborhood and we called him. So we can't always be that lucky. So we really do need to look at alternative places, perhaps staging fire resources, firefighting resources in other locations rather than at a central location. A distributed network of fireworks, firefighting work would be a logical idea to be able to implement. It's just a matter of cost and what land is available and how long it's going to take to staff and equip that type of station.
Right now, coming back to Phil Barnett and Eleanor Ruskowski. We've already talked a little bit about the hospital, and it's pretty easy to see benefits therefore coming from that new hospital. Let's look at the other side though. What problems do you see being created by the hospital, if any? And then what do you think we need to do about it?
Well, the last question actually touched on the issue, and that is we have growing presence of emergency vehicles coming with the hospital. And, you know, especially if we win a 200-bed facility, you know, we really do have to focus on how are we going to get patients to the hospital quickly so that we can save them or address their issues. Again, back to the last question, which I think was about Main Street. Main Street, which is very charming, is a bottleneck. When you're driving down Main Street, you never know if a door is going to open in your headlights from a driver. That is very unsafe, especially if you were to hit someone, which is not a good idea. I mean, these are really tough problems for us to solve. Our Economic Development Committee has already engaged our 3 major churches on Main Street to talk about how we might mobilize their parking capacity to give us more space than we have just up and down Main Street for visitors. So I think the one thing, Al, that I see coming with the hospital is how are we going to accommodate emergency vehicles?
I'm Raskowski. I commute on 2570 to work every day, and it is important that we make sure that as there's a lot of growth on that corridor, that it doesn't become another bottleneck for people. But it's also important that as we bring in all these new jobs for the hospital, that we build housing for them right there so that they aren't driving across town and adding to the Main Street bottleneck, or living in other communities and not adding to our tax base. I think that's really important. Thank you.
This question is for Mark Andrews and then David Key. We have created an active Weaverville plan that has many recommendations on ways to improve the walkability, bikeability, and recreation options in town. There are many recommendations in that plan. What are some things you would advocate to make our town more active?
Mark Andrews. I'm actually a member of the Active Weaverville Committee. I've been involved with it since the beginning and participate when I can. And also from being on the planning board, was aware of the plan, the Active Weaverville plan that came out, read it thoroughly. And I strongly support the findings of the plan. It advocates for increasing access to via sidewalks, to connect much of the various parts of town, Lake Louise to downtown, furthering increasing sidewalk access on some of the roads that could be traveled on more safely. And so I strongly support that plan. In addition to that, I've also, from my time on the planning board, gotten interested in looking at other ways that we could increase recreational access. And some of those, I think we have some great opportunities One, there's been a dream of having a greenway along Reeves Creek for a long time, both out to Carpenter Field and also to maybe potentially connect to the Woodfin Greenway down by the French Broad River. And so I've looked at that pretty extensively, and have done some planning on that on my own. And so I think, a great place to start is the town itself owns about a mile of Reeves Creek waterfront from the water wheel. And I think we could do more to mobilize that space to kind of be the spark that helps to drive a greater greenway along Reeves Creek to connect there. And so if I was on town council, I would continue these efforts that I've done independently to do all I can to increase both sidewalk access and also increase outdoor recreation. Thank you.
David King, starting with downtown, one of the things that I would look at is the crosswalks, the pedestrian crosswalks we have. We need to do something to make those safer. Signal something there that, because as the traffic continues, I actually saw someone when they passed on the right side on the crosswalk. So next thing would be, as we grow out 2570, town already, I believe, has a requirement for new businesses to put in sidewalks, infrastructure around their businesses. We need to hold to that. We need to make sure that happens, and that's an area that we can build from the ground up with mobility, walkability, and drivability. Another thing that we can do as a council is DOT has within their budget every year, so somewhere between 6 and 7%, they set aside for multimodal options, sidewalks, greenways, other type of bike lanes, that type of thing. And I know that money is accessible if you ask for it. You're not always going to get it, but I did that as a county commissioner. I went with another commissioner and an actual city council member. We got a mile of sidewalk simply for the asking in the Cameron area. So I support the greenways, those were mentioned. One that's on the books, and I think it's a part of the active plan anyway, is to get that completion between Woodfin and Weaverville. That would be a good opportunity to bring people here for to visit our restaurants, and also some people would use it for actual transportation. Thank you.
I just have to say that one of the recommendations in the plan is to refigure the intersection at East Street in Maine. And if you've been trying to go down East Street today, you'll see it's blocked up because that one's in the works.
Next, then, this is a question for Jennifer Young and then Fred Boyd. Jennifer, we are all in favor of community input, kind of like up there with, apple pie, stuff like that. Why don't I come back to you to this? What specifically do you think we need to do? And I mean specifically, do you need to do to get that input better gathered and make it a part of our future planning?
So the first part of the question, the input is from where?
Community.
From the community, okay. I love talking to people. Those who know me know I love to come up and talk to you. And I'm very interested in what you have to say. 6 people on council and a mayor can't make all the decisions for the town. It takes the input from you all and your expertise and your experience to give us your ideas, your thoughts, and your feedback on how this town grows and the plans that you would like to see for this. One thing that I have thought about doing, I have been trained some with emergency management. I'm an ER nurse by trade, and I think it's important that we work with your HOAs and your neighborhoods to identify pocket pods, they call them. And it's a way for us to communicate with your particular community, especially if we had another situation like we had with Helene. So that would be one place that the town manager, the fire department, police department, or somebody from council could go and leave information for you there, but also get information back from you, such as my neighbor is on oxygen and we don't have any oxygen tanks. This is where you would request that information, and then we could request that through emergency management to try to supply that need by the next day. I also would like to have listening sessions, just like Scotty had this week, where the community can come and, air out their concerns, their complaints, or give feedback on what they would like to see happen. I'm one of those people who are very interested in driving that to make sure that everyone has a say. It's not just the 6 of us and the mayor. It is making sure that we are your voice for this council and that we put your ideas into action for what's best for our town.
Fred Borth. I agree with Jennifer, a lot of some she mentioned. I have a good friend who just moved to the area and asked me where they could get information about the town. And I obviously mentioned the website. You also can come to the town council meetings. There's time for public comment. It's asked at every meeting to just ask a question or discuss your concern. One of the thoughts I had, and we're all full of ideas, which is wonderful, is some kind of a packet when a new resident moves to town that they receive in the mail listing these things so they don't have to try and go out and look for them. It would be great that they would know who I know they can look it up on the website, but they could also get this in paper form with information on the hospital, the fire truck, the public works, whatever they need, because it seems to me that they're a little bit lost and asking questions, you get answers. But this friend just knew that, I knew some of these answers. But I do think that that's the opportunities and what Jennifer was saying is would be great for that.
Jeff, you guys have questions from the audience?
We do, yeah.
So the first one is for Lee Barnes and then Anna Nagel. As you envision being elected to serve, what is your approach to fostering a spirit of collaboration?
Lee Barnes. I think that we have candidates here that are ready to work together and they have complementary skills. And they have some really outstanding skills that will make the council even stronger. And I think we have to put these people together and put them in a situation where they can collaborate and come up with suggestions and solutions that were discussed more widely, not only in open session with the council, but in listening sessions like Scotty had, and even special sessions that we had, like we did for the strategic plan, where the strategic plan was up on the boards, and the residents could come in and put stars on to rate which one of the objectives were their priorities. So I think that's type of interaction with our residents and constituents that we need to be able to gather that information and reduce it into something that's actually actionable. And then once we have something actionable, we put plans in place to actually do the implementation. And that's a commitment to those solutions, and all of those solutions should be aimed very strictly at community, because that's what the purpose, that's why we're here, is to provide services to our community. So I think that's the direction I would like to see things go.
Andrew Nagel. So, good question, and the two mayors sitting in front of us both gave us examples of that. That's how the community center was built. So Mayor Root put together a group of people, and the sum was greater than the individual, and that's why we have this wonderful community center. It was attempted to be built numerous times and replaced, and I think it was the lack of collaboration by town council that prevented that from happening. And when he had the vision to do that, it happened from his leadership, and that's what that takes. And Mayor Fitzsimmons decided to put Councilmember Chase, McKenna, and Nagel in a group by ourselves and talk about water. And so we were able to do the homework, work together, and then come back to the council with recommendations. And then it's up to the council to make those decisions, but I do believe that works. So the leadership from the mayor down to say, here, you three work on this, you two work on this, and yeah, involve the town, but that collaboration inside of town council is going to be required. I think somebody already said, you can't do it alone. It's a good council, a lot of knowledge. It's a knowledge across the board. We have people with planning and zoning experience, private industry experience, engineers, and listening to each other and working together as a council will help get things done.
Important to note that we had already, prior to the meetings tonight, had worked out who would be asked the next questions, but knowing the substance of the questions, so there's no steering questions to anybody, we're just getting the questions and trying to get it, spread it out among all the candidates. Next question. The town of Weaverville has created play spaces for young children. Are there plans to create safe spaces for tweens and teenagers to, quote, hang out? Half basketball court is a start. I'm going to ask y'all to expand a little bit on that to also say, what do you think this town should be doing for its children to provide them a safe and wholesome environment?
Who are you asking?
That's a fascinating question, too.
What do you think the answer is?
It's going to be
It's not
David
your-
King
it's not your-
and then Eleanor Muskeson.
This question, we're looking at a bunch of people who are older people. I am all for expanding safe spaces for children, adults, but definitely for children. But I can't do that on my own. I would seek community input, especially from those who have young children. I certainly don't have young children. So, but I would be very much open to it, and it's about the community, and if the community wants that, then your council needs to listen and respond, and I will do just that. Thank you.
As the token younger person here, and like the president who's actually used the basketball court quite a bit, it's gotten quite busy, and it's a great example of how when you build something like that, they'll come. So we need to be doing a lot more to keep in mind our teenagers and our young adults, and especially as Jennifer said earlier, as this town grows and we bring in more kids for the first time in a long time, that's going to be really important. Thank you.
So I'm not going to ask this question, but I think it should be clever. Someone asked, would you be willing to install a better PA system? Unfortunately,
Day one.
I need you to
And I will set the clock too.
Actually, back when I was mayor, nobody wanted to hear me, so actually.
Actually, you all can't see the clock is not working. And actually, I refer the clock all the time when I run the meeting, so we have a meeting Monday night. I said, can we get a new battery before Monday night? I'll be really confused. But this question goes to Mark Andrews and Phil Barnett. What can the town do to lower carbon emissions and improve our resilience for future environmental challenges?
Mark Andrews. That's a great question. I work with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Conservation is paramount of importance for what I do, both professionally and personally. As part of what the town can do, the town invested their police force in electric vehicles. I think that goes a long way. We could do more potentially with that, utilizing public works or other town departments investing in electric vehicles. As the town grows, we develop new buildings and new facilities, make sure they're LEED certified, to increase efficiency of these units. as far as like what the town can do for private citizens, increase ability for folks to walk and bike is this real simple one. Increase recreation spaces for folks that are in town rather than having for folks to go and drive elsewhere to go recreate, I think would be an important one. So as town grows, keep the addition of new parks and new recreation spaces in the forefront, maybe potentially partnering with some of the new larger developments that are coming into town to see if they might be willing to share some of these spaces with the community. And so all those I think could be great examples of trying to reduce our carbon footprint and both do that and also improve the quality of life for our residents. Thank you.
Phil Barnett. This is a double-edged sword when you think about it. We just went through a hurricane. So many of us lost huge inventories of trees. When you think about it, we could easily ask Duke Energy to run a calculation over our town to show what our tree canopy does to reduce our consumption of electricity. The second point, which again is very controversial, but it's the use of single-use plastic bags. Our son works for Publix here in Weaverville. He has a Publix shopping bag from every Publix within a 300-mile radius of Weaverville. He seems to collect them, but it really cuts down on the use of single-use plastics, which so many times go to the landfill.
Patrick has told me I can't use the 4-minute ago buzzing in, but I do need to actually ask particular people's questions. So this will go to Fred Ward and Jennifer. What consideration, first of all, from the town's perspective, to your knowledge, what consideration and what has there been to adopt such things as solar backup for savings for our town buildings? I would ask beyond that, what do you think the town needs to be doing to be a responsible steward of our environment?
Fred Lord, that's a tough one for me, to be honest with you. The solar panels, I'm told is a good idea. They give the rebates, I think, through the end of this year, so a little short notice for that. We need generator systems so that the public works can function and those kind of backups. Apologize for not being more knowledgeable on that.
Well, the town has already put in place some e-vehicles. So some of the police vehicles run off electricity. The other vehicles are hybrid vehicles, so they work on both fuel and electricity. But it was found that it is not prudent to make a patrol car completely electric. The radios, the lights, and things that are on those vehicles use so much of the battery power, and with them on the roads all day long, those cars just cannot hold that battery charge for 12 hours. Somebody says, well, why don't they plug up during lunch? Well, they don't always get lunch, do they, Scotty? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they can't sit there and wait for a car to charge up when they've got an emergency that they've got to go to. Worst case scenarios, they would have to provide mutual aid to somewhere out in the county like Barnardsville, and they're driving an electric vehicle down the road and they run out of battery. Then what? So we have to make sure that whatever we put in place is going to be the right fit for what we're doing. Yes, I think it's a good idea if we had solar panels on some of the town buildings. If we had solar panels, we would have had power to work the police department and town hall and the fire department. So I think anything that we can do to put processes in place that can mitigate the storm that we had so that we don't have to go through that chaos again where we can't talk to each other, or we don't have electricity, or we have people working at the fire station 24 hours a day and they can't even take a shower. So I think we need to think outside the box. I know that the fire department is in the process of digging a well so that they can at least take a shower if, God forbid, we run out of water again. So anything that we can do to mitigate those things, using Starlinks to help us with communication, during down periods of time, or anything else we can do to protect the environment, I think we should at least take a good hard look at it.
Thank you. Now, if I could add to that, actually, we have installed solar panels on Fire Hall, and we built the community center with a purpose that it too can be, have solar installed, so we have that on that. This question is for two mayoral candidates, Andrew Nagel and Lee Barnes. Weaverville residents have long placed high priority on walkability, greenways, safety for road users. However, over the past years, no action has been taken. Lots of plans developed, Green Street, Greenway, active Weaverville plan to address this problem, but they're sitting on a shelf. In the meantime, growth in population, increased traffic, and increased traffic. If you are elected, what priority will you place on walkability and greenways? What will you do to move this effort forward?
Hey, Lawrence, it's a really good question, and there's things that come to mind, like making sure that we get sidewalks put in wherever we can convince developers to put sidewalks in. I think that would be a positive thing, and also developers like the 107 acres that was discussed earlier, to encourage developers to make them more fully contained, self-contained places for people to live that would have a built-in daycare center, part of their building plan, that would be attractive for younger families that have children that need daycare. So things like that would be things that I would be looking at. There's some other things that we talked about for power and things like that, but it's kind of outside of the realm of the question.
Andrew Nagel. So we already have ordinances in place. Okay, so when a new development comes in town, there's a requirement to put in sidewalks, and we have to hold them their feet to the fire, and we haven't done a good job of that. So Palisades, the apartments across from Lake Louise, unfortunately, we didn't as a group. That sidewalk's there, but they can't get across to the lake. And we should have worked in better concert with that developer to put a footbridge across Reeves Creek to make it safer. We've got the apartments that are going above Walmart and Hobby Lobby. Same thing. How do we connect that all the way to the CVS? The hospital has been mentioned numerous times. We have got to work with the state, with the existing landowners, with current developers, and we've got to expand our sidewalks. It's a great walkability town. You can get from Lake Louise to downtown and stay on the sidewalk, and most people probably know that. I think having Jane Zeller and having a planning director is crucial. When the area of Creekside Village where Dee lives was developed, and that was started 20 years ago, those developers promised a lot. They promised actually a sidewalk on Aiken Road. They promised a bridge across the creek, and that never happened. The developers went bankrupt, and as new developers came on, those things were not, we didn't force the issue. And thank goodness we have Jane Zeller now in place to enforce what town council has already put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to open and give each candidate a couple of minutes to tell us about themselves and make a pitch to get your vote. We'll start on this end and just go down the table. So Phil Barnett.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I'm Phil Barnett, your candidate for town council. I'm actually a retired chemist and have also done some chemical engineering in my life. But one thing Elaine and I have tried to demonstrate while we've lived here is a dedication to you in this town. I've been your chair for economic development now for almost 4 years. That's a group of 20 volunteers, business people, entrepreneurs, professionals, and everybody is very motivated to make good things happen for the town of Weaverville. My 3 issues that I've talked about repeatedly now during the campaign have to do, number one, with our resilience and our capability to survive another crisis, which a number of you have heard about already. Number two really has to do with radius planning around the hospital. We've also talked about that. And number three has to do with continued economic development. Our number one project that we worked on this year is commercializing the old factory on Reams Creek Road. We have potential occupants moving in, including a gallery, working artist studios around the gallery, the Grail theaters, a couple of breweries, as if we needed a couple breweries. But the other exciting thing is we've got two investors that are really excited about building a paddle sports facility there, both inside and outside, that would include pickleball. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us.
Fred Borth, thank you for being here. It's wonderful, it's been great. I wanted to touch on a couple of things that I wasn't asked about, just that I thought were maybe ideas to be thought of. The fire truck and the response time. It was pointed out to me in discussion in learning about being a member of town council that majority of, and I don't have the exact number, but the majority of the fire truck responses are EMS. And the EMS is in the fire truck. My question would be to the fire department, is it allowed for the EMS to respond in something other than a fire truck, a smaller vehicle that can get through downtown quicker than a large truck? These are some of the questions I have. In regard to the hospital, wonderful thing. I can't wait for it to start and look forward to the opportunities. There's going to be challenges. One of the thoughts that I had in regard to that was at 3 o'clock in the morning, when an accident has happened really far out of town and an ambulance is coming into the hospital and there's no traffic, at what point and at what time do they have to, can they stop using their sirens to wake up the people that live so close? I'm not talking about making it non-safe. Of course, it's safe. Of course, they would have their lights, but I can't imagine living so close to the hospital that that's an issue. That's something I would bring up. The kids, we need a skate park. We need areas for kids to be able to go to hang out and love this town like I do. I almost cried yesterday going down through downtown and the kids doing their fall walk from the schools to the different businesses. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was the greatest thing for the kids, and they're so excited and happy to be here. I'm a builder in town, as I mentioned before. I don't build developments. I build houses one at a time, and I love building homes in this town. And that's the thing that I think I can bring to town council, my experiences in that facet for our challenges. And I look forward to your vote. And my name, again, is Fred Borth. I use Borth on the 4th because people mispronounce my name all the time, and I thought that was a good idea. And it seems to have worked. And thank you again.
Well, again, my name's Jennifer Young, and I grew up in Weaverville. My mom was actually on town council for 12 years here, and this has been my home practically my whole life. As I said before, I'm a nurse. I'm a master's degree prepared nurse. I worked at Mayheck, and I made connections all over the state of North Carolina, including the director of DHHS, North Carolina Hospital Association, and those are the ones that are going to be making the decision on what happens with this next round of beds that has come up with a certificate of need. There's another 129 beds that's up for grabs. So I'm trying to promote you all to sign a letter to help Weaverville get those beds for our hospital here. I know UNC Health System has put in a bid for a hospital out in the South Asheville area, but those beds need to be dedicated for us. And if we do get those additional beds, Advent Health will be a trauma center, and that's huge for our area. My past background, I was an accountant. I worked for the North Carolina Department of Revenue, so I'm very familiar with government accounting and budgeting that can serve the town with budget time. I currently serve on the planning board and the firefighters relief fund board. Another idea that I've had is to work with North Macomb Youth League to see what things they don't offer our adolescents. I know that question was asked earlier, but I would like to offer things that they don't have. And I know that Phil is working very diligently to try to get this property down on Greens Creek Road to be a paddle sport area. But are there other things that we can put in that area for our children, our adolescents in particular, that can give them something to do? I think we need to support our town employees and make sure that they get the benefits that they need so that we don't lose them because their insurance is too high. And I also think that we need to have a better level of transparency so that you all understand how decisions are made. And when things are brought to town council, you say, oh yes, I know what that is and I understand how that was made. We also need to respect you when you come up to give your 3-minute talk to the council on things that you're concerned about. We need to actively listen to you and engage with you so that we can partner with you to make the best decisions for our town. One other idea I had with the planning board, and Mark, this may affect you as well. I think that as these builders come in to build the developments, why don't we ask them to install EV charging stations for our electric vehicles? I know that a lot of the new things that have come into town don't have those stations, but it may be something that the planning board can start asking for whenever we do have new developers coming into town. I appreciate you all being here tonight and taking your time. This is a very important election. A lot of things coming up in the future that's going to change the town in some aspects, but we also need to preserve our heritage. And whoever gets elected here, you guys are going to win. We have such a good group of candidates here, and I love talking to all of them. And even if somebody here doesn't win the election, they're going to be used in this town, just like we want to pull on your expertise to help us make Weaverville the best town possible. Thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Young.
Mark Endries, thanks to the moderators for moderating. Thanks to the timekeeper for timekeeping. And thank you for doing all the hard work of handing the mic out. And thanks to the folks who are recording this, making it available on YouTube. I think that's fantastic because it is hard to make certain times. So it's awesome that this is going to be a resource for our community to review if they so choose. And thanks to everybody for planning this. Again, I've been thrilled by all of the coverage that the election has gotten, and thrilled every time I can come and just sort of talk about my candidacy. I've lived here for 16 years. My wife and I are raising 2 kids. They're both in high school now. They're going through the public schools. I'm a candidate that understands what it takes currently to raise a family here in Weaverville. I think that's real important. I try to think not only for needs that like I myself have, but on the planning board and but the needs of the community in general. My investment in the community here has been pretty substantial, I feel. 5 years on the planning board. I'm currently vice chair, have been for the last year. I work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as a DOT liaison and cartographer. I've leveraged those cartography skills I have to managing the town's spatial data. So, and kind of modernizing the way the town presents and uses that data. So it's information such as town limits, parcel information, zoning, growth areas. I also digitized the town's water network. Previous to that, it was only available on paper maps. And I also do phone and web applications. So I've taken all that data and made it available to the public. And so now you can view the town limits, you can view the parcel information. When Public Works or Fire Department goes out, they need to locate a valve or a hydrant. I've created a phone app that helps them with that process so they can, with their GPS going, hopefully more easily locate some of those resources. And independent of my direct involvement with the town through the planning board, I've also invested a lot of time independently in trying to increase public recreation and done a lot with that, try to utilizing town-owned properties as a cost-effective way to increase that public recreation. And with that, with a group of people and also town staff, we've come a long way. I wrote a draft management plan A team of us have written grants to try to find money to fund some of these projects, and also done a lot of conceptual planning. So my attempt, or my run at town council, is really what I feel is like a logical progression in my involvement with the community and involvement with the town. I do feel I'm an ideal candidate with my cartography and spatial analysis skills. I can bring that to the town and utilize that in even greater ways that I have already. I just would appreciate your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
D. Lawrence. A few months ago, Mayor Fitzsimmons asked me to join the team to help write the strategic plan for the next coming 3 years. And I absolutely said yes to that without much thought at all. And I just wanted to bring up a couple of things that have come out about that, just to give people a feel for that, because not everybody's seen it. I don't think it's still in draft mode at this point. So I just picked a couple of the goals that are mentioned in the plan. And one of those is growth, because everybody that I've talked to, knocking on doors for the last 3 months, has said something about, what are you going to do about managing the growth? So that's something that is at the top of the list of the strategic plan. So it also talks about sustainable growth, and sustainable in many different ways. So there's something else that's on there that has to be looked at. And to make something that is resilient and can withstand storms like Helene. And heaven forbid that we have to do that again. But we can do things to harden the town, make it more resistant to that type of disaster. And there are different kinds of disasters we need to plan for besides lots of rain and lots of wind. The last one I'd like to talk about just briefly is emergency procedures and processes and the things that are necessary to increase the reliability and resilience in the town. That's something that we really need to make a concerted effort to focus on and make sure we're making the right decisions for that going forward, and that we're making investments in the right places to protect the town. Thank you for your time. We welcome everybody for being here. It's important that you donate your time to us that way, because that's how we learn.
My name is Eleanor Raskowski. Thank you to former Mayor Root and Mayor Fitzsimmons for hosting this, and for everyone for showing up and sticking around this long. I'm sure it was even more boring for all of you than it was for us. I'm going to keep this brief. I'm a blue collar worker. My family's lived here for 3 generations on Lake Louise. I love it there. I love this town. When Hurricane Helene hit last year, and neighbors were helping neighbors, and I was bringing people food and water and medicine, we had conversations about the future of this town and what we need. And what they told me is that we need younger leadership. We need people who recognize the urgency of this moment. And I'm running because we need someone on this council who's going to have to live with the decisions that this council makes for decades and decades and decades. Someone for whom this isn't a problem for their kids or their grandkids, but a problem for them. That's why I'm running. Thank you.
David King, I want to thank esteemed and honorable mayors for putting this on, Jeff. And I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. It's always a pleasure to be in front of voters. But real quickly, a little about myself. I'm a native of Baldwin County. I've worked and lived here all my life. Spent 20 plus years in manufacturing and purchasing, planning, and supervision. I was a Baldwin County commissioner. I have small government experience. My wife and I have had small businesses, and so I feel in terms of qualifications, I have the qualifications to do the job. And we've talked about a lot of things here tonight, planning and fire trucks and hospitals, but this is not, Weaverville is the citizens. The town only exists for one purpose, and that is to provide the services to its citizens that you can't do individually. So it's done collectively through your taxes. The council is your representatives. And if I'm honored to have your vote and you choose to elect me, I will not lose sight of that. I will be your representative. As a commissioner, I made myself available, put my personal phone number out there. People can contact me either via email or via phone. I will respond because I take very serious the responsibility that you would invest in me, and I would not and won't ever let that down because it's important for me personally that I be the council member that you expect and deserve. So I'm asking you for your vote. Thank you for being here tonight.
Andrew Nagel, I'm running for mayor, and why should you vote for me? That's a really good question, and it's been asked often. I think the biggest thing is it's not about politics, it's about the town and how the town is run. I've got 8 years' experience on council. I was on the board of directors for the Asheville Chamber of Commerce. I sat on the Buncombe County Asheville Economic Development Commission. And I currently am co-CEO of AB Emblem Conrad Industries, and I know what it takes to run things. I know what it takes to get people together, and you can't do it yourself. You have to have a good team around you, which would include council. It's going to be a very young council. This will be the council with the least amount of council experience that we've seen in decades, and I think experience is going to matter here. We've got a new town manager who is doing great, and he's going to need mentoring and guiding. It's gonna take a lot. So we talk about a few other things off topic to go. Green? We've heard green. When I was on council, our group sold 300 acres to the Southern Appalachian Sea Conservancy. It can't be developed. So that's putting your money where your mouth is. And that money helped pay for the community center. Green, our factory has solar panels on them. They have for 15 years. I drive an EV, 100% Ford Lightning with no gas. I've got solar panels on my property. My wife and I bought 7 acres to prevent it from being developed. So what you're looking at is somebody in a family who's been in this community since 1963 who puts their money where their mouth is. I don't just talk, we do it, and we do it all day long. We probably are the longest tenured employer in town, okay? Industry's not coming back. The WEAC has done a great job. They're promoting ball crank. Well, what was there? Ball crank. It's not there anymore. So as one of the few manufacturers in town, Thermo Fisher, new one, probably the largest employer in town, what are we doing to pay our people well so they can live in this town? When I first got on council, I said we're going to become the next Biltmore Forest. This is an expensive town. It's been said. It is really expensive. Your taxes are going up next year. I'll bet you $1. They're going to do a reevaluation. Buncombe County sets the tax rate. We need 5 new police cars and 5 new policemen for the hospital. That's $400,000 to $500,000. Okay, there's 3,000 houses in town. Your taxes are going to go up. It's just a matter of how much. We cannot continue to dip into our savings account to run the town. The town has to be run on the operating budget, and that's just the way it is. I'm against raising taxes, but I'm also in favor of having services that are needed. So we have to work with Scotty. He has to present 2 types of budgets. One is a revenue neutral where your taxes don't go up, but he's going to need more policemen. Absolutely, positively. What else have we done? Water. You've heard water. We doubled the water treatment facility. That means we have to sell water to people who want it, who are in the water footprint. We don't have a choice. That's a state law. So why annex? It's been said over and over. If we don't annex them, their water bill is double, and that extra money goes to the water facility. It does not go to the town to help pay for police cars and fire trucks. So the reason you annex people when they're within your vicinity and you just sold them water, so you get that revenue. And this is about how to run something. This isn't about politics, I promise you. This is solely about, can you run a town? Can you be a leader? And do you have the experience? And I'm your most qualified candidate. Thank you, as everybody said, for coming tonight. We all appreciate you guys. Without community involvement, we wouldn't have a town. It's what makes the village, are the people. Thanks again.
Thank you to all the candidates. Give a round of applause. I'm sure they'll stick around for a few minutes if you want to talk to them directly. And remember that every vote is important, and Saturday, November 1, there, choosing the 4, back to the regular polling station. Thank you for being here.